Hello everyone, my name is Balint, and I'd like to show you some more cool apps that I've been playing around with of late in radio and using some cool new edit research hardware. So I guess before I get to the meat of it, I'd like to show you some other fun signals that I've been trying to decode. A little multi-channel decoder setup, a template setup I have in GRC that's been handy. Times that I've gone out to Moffat Air Force Base to receive signals from the primary surveillance radar. And I don't know if you've seen the video of me falling down the hill in the process. Using a USRP to decode people's IDs from their fast track passes. And another take at direction finding. And just adjust the microphone here and right. Alright, so some more signals. You may have heard about the B200. I won't go into the details because I think they were spoken about yesterday, but I've been playing around with that to receive some signals. One of the nice things, of course, is that you get up to 56 megahertz of instantaneous bandwidth. So I thought this was a pretty cool waterfall to independent Wi-Fi channels broadcasting side by side. So it's a nice wide chunk of the spectrum. It's nowhere near as pretty as Sylvan's really cool phosphor code, but for those of you that know Borderline, it's an external package that also can do FFTs very quickly. And there's a little sync that you can throw into your GRC flow graph, and when you launch it, then it'll actually open up Borderline and present the interface to you with the data streaming in. So if you can see here, I was just looking at the flex pages in the 900 meg band. The contrast isn't fantastic, but it's just quite neat because it allows you to pause the live stream, zoom in, and then flex this format like this cane. You can actually see the four varying levels of the signal there. Sorry, the contrast is not better, but I have to take my word for it that you can actually zoom in. It's a really nice tool, and now you can sort of easily connect it to your flow graph. This is a look at 900 meg band again in the ISM portion, so you can see all the smart meter bursts, and once again in Borderline makes it operate so much quicker, and you can probably see this in phosphor as well. You can actually see the bursts much more distinctly than with the traditional talk speakers that just run so fast. I guess you can't really see that. Maybe it's a little bit difficult to see, but there's sort of a GMSK burst from a smart meter here, and then two-level FSK. You can very distinctly see the two levels there as well. So you may know that there's some RDS code that was written, and I went up to the other side of Golden Bridge with the B200, and then it's really neat because not only does it decode stereo audio, but you also get all the RDS information coming out the side, and a lot of this includes traffic information around the Bay Area that usually gets decoded by your in-car navigation system, and then each flow graph has been improved a little bit so that you can see all the different side bands and demodulate each one of those. And there's also this RDS panel, and these are all GRC blocks. Okay. It's the transmitter. These are all terrestrial signals, but you might know that I like satellite signals as well. And APT, automatic picture transmission, is a downlink mode for weather satellites. And I've been looking at this a little bit with Ian Buckley down the back there. You can see that he's actually holding this Yardie, and we tried to find some satellite passes that would actually fly overhead at low Earth orbit. So we have to manually kind of follow the path with this Yardie antenna, and you can see the B200 there. It's all pretty self-contained. Oh, that's just the start of it. So this flow graph doesn't actually decode images, it just does the pre-processing. There's a nice software package called WX Image. But the reason why I've sort of put this together was because it's kind of cool. It'll allow you to lock on the actual transmission because it's fairly narrow, and then using one of the blocks, the PLL block, will actually track the carrier. And I suppose I wanted to do this just to actually visualize the Doppler shift as the satellite passes overhead. And it's kind of cool because you watch the PLL shift as it tracks the FM carrier, and then gradually it starts small and then it increases by several kilohertz. So you actually see the Doppler shift there. And then you get some nice images. So this one is contrast enhanced mode. This one's false color 2. This is normal false color, and sea surface temperature, thermal. And these sort of noisy bands are when you're trying to manually. Ian was doing a pretty mighty fine job considering how the rest of it turned out, but obviously it's possible to sort of keep track when you can't see the thing. It's on or rotated. But it's really neat because this is the west coast of the United States. Okay, so this is one of my proudest achievements. I don't even think I can track this anymore. I was just in the zone for a couple of hours and knocked this out. This is what I call the Mega FFT, and it uses this U-block I put together called, I don't know, I mean, some of you might be familiar with my quote-unquote any blocks, and this uses a new one called the any code block. What it allows you to do is inject arbitrary type into the code that is generated from GRC. And in retrospect, it probably would have been easier just to manually type the code in, but I figured there might be some nice cases where this is applicable, and I'll show you that with advanced graph decoding. But the reason why this is cool is because this is sort of the front panel. So if you're familiar with your FFT, this is the enhanced version, so you get your FFT. I made some enhancements that I need to still submit, but you get additional hooks into the GUI here where you can actually draw arbitrary lines at arbitrary points and arbitrary colors. So this one actually detects the highest peak and then draws a red line across the top. It tells you information about your device. You can optionally print string tags. You can show relative or absolute time. If you have a GPS DO, then it'll actually give you the real time there. The peak, frequency, signal magnitude. You can control the gain, antenna. You can use the slider to change the rate instead of having to time stop and just do the destination there. And then all the different tuning modes that are supported by UHD. So automatic mode, LO offset mode, and manual mode. And then you can do fine tuning and then sort of change the way the axis is displayed there. There's also another tab there where you can control DC offset and things like this. But the reason why this is interesting because of that any code block is that all of these settings here, all of the actual GUI options and slider values and ranges, they're all generated and set at runtime by the Python code that gets executed arbitrarily. So with your FFT, a lot of the options are fixed, like what antennas are available. All the code here that's actually in these blocks, they're pretty much one-liners or math functions and things like that. But they actually query UHD and ask for the device properties, and they will dynamically configure the GUI. So just a bit of an experiment in code injection. And then another tab you get the complex magnitudes, go, waterfall, and then the sensors one will tell you, your local oscillator, reference a lot, your front-end PLL slot, and so on. Another cool thing, has anybody used GNSS-SDR with 3.7 stuff? One person? I thought I'd finally give it a go. I took the V200 outside. This is the new Edis Research building in Santa Clara. I was standing right here at our corner of the building, and we've been doing Radio 3.7, and their cool work managed to actually lock on the satellite, so I was pretty impressed. But it's nice to see it working. Okay, so with parallel decoding, this was a little. I forgot to paste the logo up in here. I was basically doing math by passing around constants in a string. But anyway, this is given a list of frequencies here, and then just use its squelch, it'll step through them like somebody's amateur radios again. It's just a little experiment. But what if you wanted to do that in parallel? And I'm sure many of you have done this. But here's the same sort of thing running in parallel where you have the FFT. You you can see the lines coming up. So again, there's a number of preset frequencies that it's monitoring in parallel, and when the squelch opens, it'll just draw a line at that frequency, and whichever one comes first will have its audio, demodulated audio output to the speaker. And you can see that the squelch starts being printed here. But how do you prototype that nicely in GRC? Well, this is kind of the template that I created. So basically you have your pad source coming in, you do your frequency selection, resample if you want to, and then the main logic is done, the power squelch, and then call me old-fashioned, but I still use messages, old school messages. So this goes into this callback that's essentially asserted as a pad here. And so once you've created that template, then you can throw it into this multi-channel decoder here. So you have your served source, it goes into the multi-channel decoder where you set the frequency list, and then it'll output to whatever source sync block will actually process the messages. So here, this code internally will spin up as many versions of the flow graph that we saw previously as frequencies that we have. And you can also, I can't remember whether I had that, whether it was an aim to do dynamically runtime, but that was sort of the goal there. And of course, there are problems with spinning up that many channel selection filters when you have high bandwidth signals, but there are other ways to do it manually. I remember Nick and I were talking long ago about doing polyplanes, doing more efficient methods. So it's an option, but this is just more of a sort of test. And so what happens is this FSM here will process those squelch messages coming out through each channel, and then it will control the offset that this frequency translating filter will be set to, and that is then output to the audio sync. So that's what you end up hearing. And then in addition, it also, you give it, I think, the name of the FFT block, and then it'll set those lines and remove when the channels become or become unique. So this is a very simple example. Again, you just specify the ID of the Python name of your decoder. You can pass in arbitrary arguments, and then in addition, you can also pass in parameters that will get handled by the GRC callback mechanism, so you can change them at runtime. So that was a simple example. I applied that to AIS. Nick has a fantastic AIS decoder, but I actually found another one as well that had some GRC blocks already made. This guy put it together, Ruben Unheim, and so this is what you would traditionally do, because with AIS there are two channels that are slightly offset from 162 meg. Am I remembering correctly, Nick? Costa? And so what happens is you would need to have manually dragged in two frequency translating bar filters, the two AIS decoders, and then combine them into however you want to process the data. But if you wanted to do it in the multi-channel way, again, your pad source coming in, frequency selection, and then your quad demod, and then clock recovery, and then bits to AIS, and then outputs a message in my modified version. And then the multi-channel, it's really, really simple. So you just have your source coming in, multi-channel decoder, and then this message server, which outputs the AIS messages on the TCP port. This additional stuff here is just to actually have two FFTs come up in your graphical flow graph. And then, curiously, for the for this to actually pick up the ID of the Python code generated in that template, it's a little bit of a hack, but you might find it entertaining. You actually have to drop in one of the blocks that this is going to instantiate n number of times. Because, when you drop in a higher block, a hierarchical block, it'll insert that a little bit of Python generated code, and that'll import it. So I drop that in, and then I just have a null source with a for rate of 1, and then that sort of keeps it happy. But then otherwise run it. So this is what happens when you run the thing. You have got two channels. It's running from B200, and then I went over to San Francisco, and then you can see the ships coming up. This is printed out from the TCP port. Ships moving around. There's this one that's just sort of come about, the main increase. You can see the code there. And then you can see all these three ships, different sizes in this area here as they pass by. This one, the fancy zoom out, and you can see that these are actually two cargo ships that are passing by one another out here. Okay, so that's multi-channel. Bit of radar. One cool thing about the V200 is that it goes up to 6 gigahertz, and these radars can operate in the 2 gig and 5 gig ranges. This is at Moffett Air Force Base, and it's rotating. You can see that because it's near the Air Force Base, the surveillance radar for aircraft, and each time it points to the camera, which is where the V200 is, you see this massive spike on the time domain plot. And if you listen, you can actually hear, because I have it in the GRC flow graphs, built it out through to the audio card as well. There's that massive pulse. So we're triggering here in the time domain. And what's cool is that you can actually see returns of ground clutter just following the main bang here. So if you look, the V200 manages to pick that up there. And then there's this additional block. I just call it the radar detector block. What it does is it filters out these large pulses and then keeps track of the time difference between them. And the output of that, i.e. every large pulse, is actually output on this one. So each time it comes around, you'll see this sort of massive increase and then it goes back down again. You also see this kind of noise here, and that is in detecting the ground clutter because it exceeds its threshold. But this is the sort of flow graph here. It's more or less simple. You basically turn it to AM, put it through a couple of filters, and then the radar detector block is here. And then when it actually detects the pulses and the timing, it puts it out to this radar server that's running on this TCP port. And then a long time ago, I was mucking around with a Wi-Fi card that does this sort of radar detection. I wrote this GUI for it, so I reused the GUI here. But this is actually a plot of the time difference between those bands. And what's interesting is that, that we actually have these two peaks showing up. Usually with the radar, it's sending the bangs out at a constant rate, just called the pulse recognition frequency. But this one was actually displaying two peaks. And I was a little bit confused by that. If you look at the actual bits in the histogram, you get numbers that look kind of normal. I think that's 800 and 1,000 milliseconds roughly. And as it turns out, the ASR9 primary surveillance radars that are distributed all around the world, in fact, can actually operate in this dual PRM mode. And I'm not sure whether it changes through the time of day, but there's quite a lot of documentation online that sort of suggests that this second PRM, the dual PRM radar, the ASR9, papers that talk about it. And apart from actually, if I may say, surveilling the skies, it's also used for doing weather observations. And there's no doubt here that dual PRM technique employed by ASR9 radars should eliminate multiple trip returns when they look at sort of watch content and things like that. So that was something cool that I discovered with the V200. So now to fast track. Fast track is kind of a traffic toll tag system. I think on the East Coast it's called Easy Pass or something, is that right? And I think it's pretty much the identical system as this one. And I think I was driving through the tolls one day and I thought, well, it's RFID, there's some radio going on. Let's try and get into it. And there's been sort of security discussion on this in the past. There's a talk of Black Hat in 2008 about it. They looked at more from sort of penetrating the hardware, looking at the microprocessor and what it was doing, but I haven't found any work done specifically on the RF side of things. So I thought that might be fun. So the way it actually works is that, as people know, as we drive through, some RF energy will activate the tag. It's like a wake-up signal. And then the tag will do its thing, come out of its deep sleep state. It's actually a long life lithium battery in the tag. and then it'll read the ID from your tag, and then deduct that from your card. And the point here is that there's actually no authentication or encryption mechanism at all. The people that did the initial research found that there were signs of this in the code, but it wasn't actually to do with this transaction. It was probably more to do with maybe programming the ID at the factory. So if you were able to get sneaky enough, you could probably reprogram everybody's tag as well, but more on that later. So the way it works is that they have assignments given to them by the FCC and all groups in a 900 meg ISM band. And you have this wake-up signal, and then there's actually an interrogation, which is pulse position modulated, which, funnily enough, is also what is used in modems. Now, the tag then replies. The trick here, though, is that the tag is not an active transmitter in itself, and it uses this thing called backscatter modulation. Who's heard of backscatter modulation or anything like that? All right, well, correct me if I'm wrong when I explain it. But, basically, the interrogator, it will send its pulse position modulated signal, and then it will keep a constant carrier wave active from its transmitter. And this tag has both a transmit and a receive antenna. But what it does is it changes the load on the transmit antenna. So effectively, from the point of view of the interrogator, this tag is going to change its radar cross-section with respect to the transmitter. And that backscatter can then be detected at the transmitter either by using one antenna and an RF circulator that I'll show, or you can use two antennas. So it'll reflect the RF energy and it'll modulate it a little bit. It's a very, very weak signal, but if you have the right setup, you can detect it. And it modulates with FSK. And the reason why this technique is really good is because everything is then synchronized to the transmitter. You don't need to do clock recovery because this thing doesn't have its own clock. It's all based on the transmitter. So if you drive around, you might see these antennas on street poles, lampposts. So they're not only at the traffic toll booths, they are also scattered around the city. And if you look at the Fast Track site, for example, they say that they're using this for 511 traffic information services, so you can call them up and find about the same traffic in the area. I don't know if there's a guy that spoke at GRCon this year, and he had a little detector of this specific energy, and there's a little cowboy put on his dashboard that would light up and move every time he found it. He lived in New York, and it was going off all the time, anywhere that he lived. So you could argue that they're also keeping tabs on people.
There's no arguing, they are. There's no need to argue, they are.
So this potentially was one of those. And I thought, well, let's have a look. I parked next to one, and I've got Ian kindly with the Yagi antenna. Got a look at the V200 there, just having a look at the spectrum. The signal was actually very strong, and I recorded it, so I was recording purely the interrogation signal. And I also went to the Golden Gate Bridge toll booths and sat there in this bus stop, completely inconspicuous with my iPhone. And you pointing at the toll booths. So the way that I tried to do it initially is using an RF circulator. I sort of had heard about them in the context of microwave, but never used them myself. Does everybody know what it is, or can I do a quick recap? Okay, recap. It's a ferromagnetic device that is used to pass RF energy from one port to the next, but then not any further. So the way it works is that you pass in the transmit signal from your radio into port 1, and it'll come out port 2 and it goes into your Yagi antenna in this case. And then anything that is then received back by that antenna such as the backscatter modulated signal from the tag, will come back down into port 2, pass into port 3, and then come out. And this receive side is then put back to the radio. The idea is that it should provide sufficient isolation between the TX and RX paths so that you don't blow out your RX side with your strong TX signal. And then, in addition, in certain situations, you might want another signal to come back from 3 and circulate to 1 and come out. But in this case, we don't need to worry about that. So this was my little test setup, and the idea is kind of being supported by that incredibly annoying monkey we throw around the office. It makes this shriek noise. But you can see here is a USERV. The TX and RX sides both come out to either side of the circulator. It's actually very, very small. And then it has a single connection to the antenna. So this antenna, the cool thing is it's both doing the transmission and reception. And then it's just firing the tag there. So this is the GUI. I cheated a little bit in that I never ended up writing the code to do the interrogation. All I do is I replay what I recorded, but it's not that difficult task to write your own TX side of that. Just want to get it working, I need to write the RX side first. So this is just the scope of the interrogation signal. On the receive, this is what is actually coming back from the circulator. You don't get perfect isolation, obviously. There will always be a little bit of leakage. And because I wasn't using a power amplifier, I wanted to max out the gain, the transmit gain on the radio. So I used a 30 dB pad. So some signal still comes back. And that's okay. So what we're actually seeing here is in the time domain on the left-hand side, you can see the interrogation. And remember I was saying there's this wake-up pulse, which is just basically this little AM, remember, so this is just a constant carrier. And there's 100 microsecond wait time for the tag to come out of sleep. And then there's this pulse position modulated or Manchester encoded pulses that describe things like the interrogator ID, CRC, the actual payload ID, and so on. And then there's this long time here. Imagine it's not squiggly, but rather it's flat. In this particular capture, there must have been some DC or something like that. But imagine it's flat, and this is the signal, the constant carrier that will be received and then backscatter modulated by the tag. So once the interrogation is sent out, and you have the CW, you see here, there's a difference. So here you have the interrogation, and suddenly you have this little bit of extra energy that's being modulated onto your constant carrier. And this is the frequency shift key applied to the tag. And there's my tag ID that's been decoded by the flow graph. That's a little WX static text box thing that you can set arbitrary colors and font sizes up as one of the obvious. And I blacked out my ID so that you can't masquerade as me. But I am going to do a live demo which will reveal my ID. Just warning you in case you want to get your pens out or cameras out. But I will be looking at my statements. So there's the response. And in terms of actually detecting the preamble, there's a fixed preamble that comes off the tag. I just used a match filter. So it's an FIR filter whose taps the preamble. And then you get a nice sort of spike when it matches that tag. And I delay the samples by whatever the group delay is there. And then just sample in the fast track decode block. Just sample it at the appropriate times and slice and then have your little bits. It's as simple as that. So this is what the flow graph looks like. This contains both the transmit portion down here, and then this is sort of the receive part as it comes through. So you have your first quad demod, your Hilbert, multiply by your symbol deviation, another quad demod, some more filtering, and then you slice, and then the preamble is fixed, and so here it goes into the semantic FIR filter. And so this is the fast track decoder block. The second input is the sync, which is the output of the preamble detection, and the first input is just the original quad modulated signal, but it's delayed so that they come in synchronized. And then it just prints out the tag item. So this is the original talk that I found. This presentation is really good. It's got a lot of technical detail that I learned from. And that's Black Hat 2008. So that's FarmScribe. And I'll do a live demo at the end. I'm going to save them up because if I keep swapping the VGA monitors, I'm probably going to blow all of my thumbs up. You know how that is. So a revisit at software-defined radio direction finding. I have to put a big plug out to Moritz Fischer right there and Martin Brown. They've put a lot of effort into creating GRCon13 and spent a lot of time sort of applying that code to do super resolution direction finding, which enables you to do more accurate direction finding compared to, say, the pseudo-Doppler approach that I spoke about last week. So this is, you might remember this, I sort of had my car and my cutout antenna sitting in step one and an antenna switch. And I drive around from Sydney, but I also drove around New. I keep joking that I drove through Mount New and then through the Google campus, because why does Google have to have all the cars with the fancy things on the roof? I thought I'd pay to visit in car. But the second way is using the super resolution methods. And with the pseudo-Doppler technique that I described before, you have multiple antennas, but then you switch through them electronically. So when you have a receiver, you only need a one-channel receiver. In this particular, it's with super resolution. You still have multiple antennas, but the trick is that you need multiple receive chains. And you can achieve that with multiple radios or with one big honking radio that you might have heard about. I'll show that in a minute. But you have one stream per antenna, and then you apply some sort of mathematical model to the samples that you're receiving. Of course, there are certain assumptions that need to be made, in particular that you're using a coherent setup, so all of the samples are time aligned coming in at the same time. So that's in terms of the receiver. In terms of the mathematical model itself, one that we ended up sort of using and experimenting is called MUSIC, which is the multiple signal classification algorithm. And it assumes that you have these distinct sinusoids coming in, and you have some sort of linear wavefront that will impinge upon your fixed antenna array. So you'll see in a moment some photos, but it's also very important to calibrate the algorithm for the antenna array configuration you have. And you can either do that manually or you can do that synthetically. And so we decided to use music. There are other ones. In fact, there are a lot of other cool ones in the GRCon13 toolkit. But this was sort of the simple one to get going. There's a whole bunch of maths that I won't go into. Moritz could probably give you the better rundown than I can, and Martin too. But essentially, you do some matrix math, find some eigenvectors, do some decomposition, and then you get some angles. Voila, magic. It can be a little bit computationally intensive, though, depending on how often you do this. And so it's important to tweak that in your program. And then what happens is this will effectively calculate an array response. And then what you do is you apply that array response to your antenna configuration. It's called antenna manifold. And then you go through each of the angles and you find which has the peak response, and that's your angle. There are other more efficient ways of doing it, but this is the one that I'm going with. So this is kind of your virtual antenna configuration. In this case, we just have what's called a uniform linear array. So we have these antennas that are equally spaced, and your wavefront will come in at some angle and hit the antennas at slightly different points in time. So we'll have phase differences between your different antennas, and it's that property that you end up exploiting to find the angle of arrival. So this is a modification on the normal plot. This allows you to plot some arbitrary data. This is plotting the output of when the algorithm finishes, and then it's matched against the array manifold. So I have increments of a degree, so you can see that it goes from 0 to 360 degrees. I have a uniform linear array of 4 antennas. No, I'm sorry. It's a 2D array so that I can get full 360 resolution. But you can see that as it computes the response for each of the angles, you're going to get this peak at the angle at which that wavefront was actually hitting the array. And I was just using a walkie-talkie at the time. So it's cool because you get higher resolution, and you can also create three-dimensional antenna arrays that will give you not only angle in one particular plane, but both, so you can do full 3D resolution. And the cool thing about this as well is that instead of just simply detecting a single incoming wavefront, you can simultaneously detect a whole bunch. So if you set your mathematical model up with the assumption that there are in fact going to be 3 incoming signals, you can simultaneously detect each one of them. Instead of before, like with my pseudo Doppler approach, you only do one of them. But you need coherent radios for that. So this is the sort of flow graph. When Maurice and I were experimenting, we were using the quad radio, which is a 4-channel coherent receiver. And this receiver then is represented by this block and has 4 of these complex outputs. Each of them go into frequency channel selection so that we can sort of narrow in. We interleave the sample streams, so you get one interleave sample stream coming out, turn it into a vector, and then we decimate it because otherwise it would just be far too much information for the algorithm to compute in real time. And you don't actually need to do a continuous sampling. You can just break it up into chunks and sample as fast as your computer can handle. And then once that's done, it simply comes down into this music DOA estimator block. So it comes in, it has particular parameters that I will show you in a moment, but it will output per the number of signals you expect to receive, the angle, the response of that particular signal, and then the entire pseudo spectrum if you want to plot that like I showed you before. So this is the sort of setup we're experimenting with times. You just have a laptop connected to the 4-channel receiver, and then you can see, you know those USB missile launchers you can get on ThinkGeek? Got one of those because it would be fun to actually control something. So this is the actual GUI there. You've got your FT, and then this sort of modified compass widget that will show you the angle of arrival for the signal. So when we actually transmit on the walkie-talkie in this lab environment, the light will come up and show you where that signal's coming from. So this is a little video you can see here. The missile launcher is rotating and calibrating, and I'm standing there. I've got the HT in my hand. As I move left and right, you can see that the missile launcher tracks where I'm standing. And then I'm about to say something to the thing. Fire! So when it detects modulated audio, then it fires up one of the missile. So I wanted to replicate that in the real world. So I got my homemade antennas again, stuck them to the roof of the car, and then threw a quad radio in the boot. And it seemed to be quite happy there. So this is just me calibrating the system, testing it out. I walk around that crowd, and as you can see when you're walking around, there's the modulated audio here, and there's also the direction that changes as I walk around. And then the same thing in a little app that plots it on OpenStreetMap. The flow graph ends up calculating the angles and sending them out via a UDP socket. And so you can just walk around the car. This is the old Mountain View office. And then I decided to go for a drive again. Google's up here. And there was some signal that I was listening to in the 900 megahertz range. It's doing a pretty good job pointing down. Sometimes it goes up a little bit. The problem is when you're in an urban environment, you cannot escape multipath reflections off buildings, so that can upset it. But that's just life. You have to deal with that when you make your measurements. So this is the actual music DOA block. GRCon13 has a number of blocks themselves. We need to tweak them a little bit to do the actual direction finding. a little bit differently. So the idea is that you pass in the number of antennas, the number of signals that you expect to receive, and then the effector size of the chunk that you give it, the angular resolution, so how many angles it will step through each time it finds that peak array response, the frequency of the signal, spacing. These are all used to calculate the synthetic array response of the antenna configuration that you're using, and then you simply express your antenna array as this array of coordinates on an XY plane. It will actually, when you start the flow graph, it will calculate the array response region angle, and then use that as a lookup when it actually finds your angle of arrival. And it's also quite important to calibrate. So you need to use a shared local oscillator so everything's going on the same low. You need to inject a shared tone into all of the front ends, and then you need to calculate the per channel phase differences so that everything's coherent, and then apply corrections and recalibrate. So this flow graph here, again, just uses the quad radio source, but then it calculates the phase difference once a tone has been injected between the second, third, fourth output with respect to the first. So this is the test tone. These are the actual waves. Obviously, they need to be on top of one another. This is actually just plotting over time the phase differences. Once you take, in this flow graph, you just simply hold the values. You click hold, it will hold with these values. You just copy them over and it stores it in the file. Okay. And then once you put the values in, you can see that everything's zeroed out, everything's aligned, and you're good to go. So with the fast track then, this is sort of my red security slides. You don't ever want to pay a toll, you can just pretend to be something else. You don't necessarily have to use your tag. You could use some other system to backscatter modulate a legitimate ID. And you can collect everybody's ID by going to a car park or standing on an overpass. As everyone drives by, will interrogate their tag. Do you want traffic management to think there's been an auto stampede somewhere on the highway? What you've got to do is respond to a whole bunch of valid IDs under their antennas. Do you want to keep tabs on someone? You look out for their tag ID. And if you ever get bored, then you can always take, say in this case, a V200 with you, and so thank you. That's sort of the presentation portion. I would like to, if the demo gods are with me, do some live demonstration. Any questions while I set up? Okay, so first off, okay, so let's do some contour. So I'm just launching that flow graph. I've got the B200 here sitting on my desk. And oh good, maybe you won't be able to make out all of it with my ID. So it's sending out the interrogation pulses. I'm actually not even using a circulator here, I just have these two antennas. And if you put the tag at the appropriate spot, you can just receive a sufficient signal. This is on the receive side, so I'm going to turn up the gain. I think I was using that before. Yeah, so you can see there, that's the interrogation pulse, and there's this unmodulated carrier that echoes after that. So now, if I put the tag in the right spot, you'll see just here, some stuff will appear, and that's when it will end up decoding. Let's see. Got to get it the right way, this one's a bit finicky. Maybe I need more gain. Oh, there we go. See that? Does everyone see the backscatter appearing there? And then it's essentially my tag ID. So that's essentially what it looks like when you detect pulse. And because it's FSK, the actual offset in AM doesn't really matter. So that's that one.